Hi, I'm Ajil, and today I'm going to discuss my dissertation on the topic Architecture Thinking Through Fashion. As an abstract, the connection between architecture and fashion, in particular, has never been stronger. These two disciplines have a strong connection which causes us to think differently as designers. Fashion isn't just for fashion designers, and architecture isn't just for architects. Style is used in architecture and fashion to portray period, character, attitude, and feelings. This research focuses on the use of geometry, form, texture, and function as a raw influence for fashion. The concept of architecture are examined through the work of architects, which is then correlated to similar practices in fashion. Many architects are influenced by clothing when designing buildings, and the opposite is also true. This study will develop fresh application for this design methodology. Let's now discuss the need of this research. The relationship between architecture and fashion has been an intriguing subject for research for several years. The connection between these two fields has become increasingly apparent as the world of fashion has evolved into an industry that is not only concerned with clothing design but also with the design of spaces and environments. The topic could provide valuable insights into the ways in which fashion and architecture intersect and inform each other. This research could explore how fashion designers use architectural concepts and the principle in their designs, as well as how architects use fashion as a source of inspiration in their work. This research might have practical implications in the fashion and architectural sectors. Designers may be able to produce more inventive and sustainable solutions that fulfill the demand of both industries if they understand how these professions cross and inform each other. This research might also spark new collaborations and integrative approaches to design. In this research, we'll learn about the history of the relationship between architecture and fashion, including examples of famous architects who has been inspired from fashion and vice versa. The use of materials and textures in both fashion and architecture, and how designers in each field are influenced by the other. We'll also learn about the relationship between body and spaces and how this is explored in both fashion and architecture. We'll also explore the role of technology in both fields and how advancements in material and manufacturing techniques have influenced design. The main central question of this research is how has the relationship between architecture and fashion evolved throughout the history and what can we learn from this relationship? And the sub-questions are how can the principles of fashion design such as materiality and form be applied to the architectural design? How materiality in architecture and fashion interrelated, and how can the use of textiles and soft materials in architecture enhance the user experience and contribute to a more sustainable built environment. The aim of this research is to encourage a deeper understanding of the relationship between architecture and fashion and to explore new possibilities for collaboration and innovation between these two fields by investigating the shared materiality, functionality, and aesthetics. The objectives are to analyze the historical and contemporary relationship between architecture and fashion and to identify areas of overlap and potential for collaboration. It is also to examine how the materiality and construction techniques of fashion can inform architectural design with a focus on the use of innovative and sustainable materials. It also aims to explore the use of textiles and soft materials in architecture and to investigate how these materials can be used to enhance user experience and contribute to a more sustainable built environment. The scope of this dissertation is to explore the relationship between architecture and fashion and to investigate how the two disciplines can learn from each other to create more innovative and sustainable design practices. The focus is on the use of materials and textures in architecture and the role of materiality in both disciplines. The dissertation also aims to identify the best practices of interdisciplinary collaboration between architecture and fashion designers, drawing on case studies and examples of successful collaborations. The dissertation will also explore how fashion can inform architectural design, particularly in terms of aesthetics, innovation, and sustainability. It will definitely best practices for interdisciplinary collaboration between architecture and fashion designer, drawing on case studies and examples of successful collaboration. The scope of dissertation is not limited to any specific time period, region, or build type, but rather aims to provide a comprehensive and interdisciplinary exploration of the relationship between architecture and fashion. The limitations of the dissertation include the vastness of the field of architecture and fashion, which means that not all aspects of the relationship between the two can be covered comprehensively. There may be a lack of historical information available on the relationship between architecture and fashion, particularly in terms of the use of textiles and soft materials in architecture. There may be a limited number of case studies available that examine successful interdisciplinary collaboration between architects and fashion designers. The dissertation may require expertise in both architecture and fashion, which can pose a challenge for researchers who are not familiar with both fields. The relationship between architecture and fashion may vary significantly across different cultural contexts, which could limit the generalization of the findings. This is the chart that showing the literature review outline of the topic architecture thinking through fashion. In this topic, we are going to explore the history of the relationship between architecture and fashion, use of material and textures in fashion and architecture, and the role of technology in fashion and architecture. In the history part, we'll overview the historical relationship between architecture and fashion. We'll also explore the key figures and movements that have influenced the relationship. In the material part, we'll explore the use of materials and textures in both uh, medium, and we'll also analyze the ways in which designers in each field are influenced by the other in their material choices. In the technology part, we will overview the ways in which technology has influenced design in both fields. We'll also examine how advancements in technology have led to new possibilities for designers. Based on the literature review, it can be inferred that the relationship between architecture and fashion is complex and multifaceted. The history of the relationship between these two fields shows that there has been a long-standing exchange of ideas and influence with architects and fashion designers drawing inspiration from each other's work. The use of materials and textures in both fashion and architecture is an area of commonality, with designers in both fields experimenting with new materials and textures to create innovative designs. The relationship between body and space is also a common thread, with designers exploring the ways in which the body and space interact to create meaning. Technology has played a significant role in both fields, with designers using advancements in technology to push the boundaries of design. Globalization has also had an impact on both fields, leading to new collaborations and an exchange of ideas between designers from different cultures and backgrounds. Overall, the literature review suggests that the interdisciplinary approach to design have the potential to lead to new innovation solutions in both architecture and fashion. By exploring the intersection between these two fields, designers can create more sustainable and meaningful designs that meet the need of both industries. In this research, we have also explored about the famous architects and designers like Zaha Hadid, Iris Van Herper, Renzo Piano, and we have also learned about did the case studies about the stores like Louis Vuitton's Tokyo flagship store and Prada's Transformers. The research has shown that there is an increasing trend towards the use of sustainable materials in both architecture and fashion, driven by concerns over environmental impact and the need for more sustainable practices. This has led to the exploration of new material and manufacturing processes that prioritizes the sustainability and minimize waste. There is also a growing interest in the use of technology to create new material and incorporate innovative design in both fashion and architecture. For example, 3D printing and digital fabrication techniques are being used to create custom designed garments and buildings that are both functional and aesthetically appealing. In addition to the materials themselves, the use of texture and surface treatment is also an important consideration in both field and fashion and architecture. The texture and the finish of a material can have significant impact on the overall look and feel of a design. And designers in both field uses textures and surface treatment to create specific aesthetic effect. Overall, the literature suggests that there is a strong relationship between materiality in architecture and fashion, and that designers in both fields can benefit from exploring this connection further. By incorporating principles and materials from both fields, the designers can create innovative and sustainable designs that push boundaries of both architecture and fashion. After conducting a thorough review of the literature on the topic architecture thinking to fashion, one potential knowledge gap that could be identified is the lack of research on the practical application of this intersection between these two fields. While there is a considerable amount of literature on history, theory, and aesthetic of the relationship between architecture and fashion, there is a relative scarcity of research that explores how these ideas can be put into practice. For example, there may be little information on how fashion designers can incorporate architectural principles into the design to create functional, sustainable clothing, or how architects can use fashion as a source of inspiration for designing public spaces and buildings. Another potential gap in this area is lack of interdisciplinary research that bring together experts from both the fashion and architecture industries. While there are some examples of successful collaborations between these two fields, there may be limited research on specific challenges and opportunities presented by interdisciplinary work. Addressing these knowledge gaps could be valuable in advancing our understanding of the relationship between architecture and fashion and in exploring new possibilities for collaboration and innovation between these two fields. Future research could focus on practical application of these ideas and on bringing together experts from both industries to explore new avenues for interdisciplinary works. The methodology part is been subdivided into literature review, material experimentation, user experience analysis, sustainability, and design proposal. In the literature review, it conducts a thorough literature review on the relationship between architecture and fashion, including key concepts, historical examples, and current trends. The material experimentation, it experiments with different materials, textures, and forms to explore the potential for incorporating fashion-inspired elements into architectural design. The user experiences analyzes the user experience of projects that incorporate fashion-inspired elements into architectural design. Analyzing the environmental impact of projects that incorporate fashion-inspired elements into architectural design. This may involve conducting life cycle assessment, analyzing energy and water usage, and exploring the potential for sustainable materials and construction methods. In design proposals, it developed design proposals that incorporate fashion-inspired elements into architectural design. This dissertation also employs a comparative analysis of use of materiality in architecture and fashion. The analysis will be based on case studies of exemplary works in each field, focusing on the way in which materials are used to shape the experience of space and the dress. The case studies will be selected based on their historical significance and their ability to illustrate key aspects of materiality in architecture and fashion. Let's now discuss about the results of this dissertation. Relationship between architecture and fashion. A dissertation may explore the relationship between architecture and fashion and find that there are similarities and differences in the design process, material used, and cultural influences. The results may show that there are opportunities for collaboration and cross-disciplinary design between these two fields. Perception of architecture and fashion. This dissertation may investigate how people perceive and interact with building and fashion and find that there are connections between the two in terms of aesthetic, functionality, and symbolism. The results may shows that the fashion can influence architecture and vice versa, and that this influence can impact individuals' perception of the space and fashion. Historical evolution of architecture and fashion. A dissertation may analyze the historical evolution of architecture and fashion and find that there have been periods of convergence and divergence in design, materials, and cultural influences. The results may show that the relationship between these two fields is dynamic and constantly evolving. Impact of technology on architecture and fashion. This dissertation may explore the impact of technology on architecture and fashion and find that advancement in material and construction methods have led to new opportunity for collaboration and cross-disciplinary design. The results may show that technology has opened new possibilities for integrating architecture and fashion in innovative ways. Sustainable design in architecture and fashion. This dissertation may investigate sustainable design in architecture and fashion and find that there are opportunities for collaboration in terms of eco-friendly materials and design practices principles. In summary, the results of dissertation will depend on research questions and methodology used. However, the results may highlight the relationship between architecture and fashion, the perception of these two fields, the historical evolution of design, the impact of technology, or the opportunity of sustainable design. This table shows the potential use in architecture based on the materials used in fashion. First, we have recycled fabrics. In architecture, we can be used this material for the insulation, wall, or ceiling coverings. The second materials in fashion is the biodegradable textiles. This can be used as a green roofs, walls, or floorings in architecture. Next, we have natural fiber like bamboo or linen, which can be used for the flooring, wall covering, or as an insulation in architecture. Smart fabrics like UV resistant self-cleaning ones, which can be used in architecture, building facades, or used as exterior claddings. Next, we have 3D printed fabrics, which can be used for the complex building components and structures, including modular constructions. Next, we have digital textiles. In architecture, it can be used for facades, interior walls or ceilings, or also used as decorative features. Conductive fabrics. In architecture, this can be used as integrated lighting, heating, or also used for sound systems. Self-healing fabrics. In architecture, it can be used for the facades or the surface that can repair themselves from damage, or it can wear over time. Architecture and fashion can be interesting topics to discuss. They are both creative fields that involve designing and creating structures or clothing, respectively. The topic explores the intersection of these two fields, which can lead to some exciting possibilities. How fashion and architecture are related can be examined in different ways. For example, some fashion designers have looked to architectural structures for inspiration when creating their clothing design. Similarly, architects often use textiles and other elements in their design, such as incorporating them into the facades or layout of a building. By investigating the similarities between design processes in architecture and fashion, one can better understand the creative process and apply it to different fields. Architecture and fashion have a big impact on culture, both in way people interact with their environment and how they present themselves into others. By looking at how these fields have changed over time and what effects they have on society as whole, we can learn more about the role that these things play in shaping our lives. Overall, architecture thinking through fashion is a fascinating topic that offers great insight into the creative process and the impact of design on society. Examining how these two fields intersect can provide us with a better understanding of creative itself. The study found that both architecture and fashion use materials to create forms that can evoke emotion and express ideas. But there are some major differences in how these fields use materials. In architecture, materials are often used to create sense of place and to express cultural and social values, while in fashion, materials are often used to convey status, identity, and style. As a conclusion, both architecture and fashion have a lot to offer each other. By looking at how materiality, form, and style can be applied to architecture design, we can see new possibilities for expression and innovation. Similarly, by studying the way fashion affects our perception of space, identity, and culture through architecture, we can gain new insight into these topics. This dissertation has demonstrated that there are many connections between the field of architecture and fashion. From using materials to exploring new design styles, architects can learn a lot from fashion designers. Architecture and fashion share a lot of common ground. They are both constantly evolving, adapting to changing cultural contexts, and shaping the building environment. By thinking critically about fashion, architects can explore new creative possibilities that have an aesthetic as well as a social impact. Thank you.